Sometimes it can be difficult to talk to our family, especially our children, about difficult subjects. If you're having that difficulty, one way that you could approach it is the way people have always approached difficult subjects, through telling stories. Hello and welcome to Intermarifica, New Mexico, the place where we look at questions of wonder from the perspectives of philosophy and theology, faith and reason. I'm your host, Daniel Kelly. And today we're going to be looking at one of wonders of culture. So many people have asked me to do more book reviews, more video game reviews, more reviews of stuff. And I'm happy to do that. That's one of the reasons I started this channel. Probably every other week or so we're going to do a review week. And so this week what we're reviewing is J.K. Rowling's book, The Ickabog. And I really enjoyed this book. A story she had told to her children. But then during COVID, during that time when we were all locked down and stuff, she was like, hey, I bet a lot of children are lonely, don't have people to tell them stories, different stuff like that. So why don't I publish this so other children can enjoy it? And it's a really good book. It tells the story of this really fairy tale prosperous kingdom that's just really wonderful, and how that kingdom very quickly turns into a tyrannous, not very good kingdom. Kind of what we today might call, using today's language, might be more like when a utopia turns into a dystopia, right? But one thing I like better about it than other dystopian novels is that's very fairy tale. The whole atmosphere is fairy tale so that it's more fun. I'm not a big fan of most dystopian novels. I'm probably going to review some in the future. And some of my family are big fans of some of these dystopian worlds and stuff. But I like that this is a fun fairy tale way to look at how a tyranny comes about. So it's these things that J.K. Rowling obviously thought were important to share with her children, but talks about them in a way that is very accessible to children. So as a Christian reader, if you're looking at it, it doesn't have any of the concerns that you might have from looking at Harry Potter. Some Christian parents I know are like, well, we probably don't want to expose our children to Harry Potter or different things like that, but I don't think this has anything that should concern a Christian parent overly much. One of the really cool things, so it's telling the story of this prosperous kingdom turning into a tyranny, but it's doing it, like I said, in a very fun way, but it's doing it from the point of view of these 2 and later 3 children. And it really shows the costs and stuff that we don't usually think of a tyranny coming about from the point of view of children. What matters a child when freedoms are being lost, when these different bad things are happening? And so in that, it brings out a lot of stuff that's sometimes hard to talk about, a bunch of stuff that children will face, but it might be hard for them to face because parents and family members haven't talked to them about it in the past. So it deals with the issues of loss, betrayal, all these kinds of different, very difficult, like death when someone close to you dies, all these things that are very difficult for children. And that's the important parts of like a tyranny coming about to a child's point of view. It's not all this government thing and we need our freedoms and all that. So there's these things that J.K. Rowling obviously thought were very, very important that she tells through the lens of these children going through a fairy tale kingdom. And it's very adventuresome, it's not dark, it's not depressing, but it's dealing with these difficult subjects. And I don't want to spoil it, I want you to read it for yourself, but of course like as a fairy tale should have, there is a happy ending and problems are solved in some satisfying ways and some not satisfying ways. There's just a really, really good twist in the middle that I love. I love books that have a good twist in them. That's one of my favorite things. So this has that you don't really see coming but fits with everything really well. So that's kind of the story. And now let's talk about some of the things I really liked about the Ickabog and some of the things I didn't like. One of the things I really like is it's illustrated by a bunch of children that like J.K. Rowling. So it has just a bunch of illustrations that they sent in that are really cool and really beautiful and could really bring it alive to younger readers. The style of the Ickabog I really like. It's that 80s style of liberal feminism that I grew up with. That was my family. It's different from the Catholic feminism that I'm familiar with, or the modern feminism that's gone kind of a different ways, but it's kind of that liberal mindset that's not cynical, but is very hopeful, kind of like if you ever saw that show Seventh Heaven, kind of that liberalism that's very upbeat about things. It's very sure of human reason and its ability to solve problems and see through superstitions, very matter-of-fact. Again, if you've seen Seventh Heaven, it's that kind of matter-of-fact way. And very different than the skepticism that we see associated with liberalism in the early 20th century, or the cynicism that we associate sometimes, not always obviously, but sometimes with liberal mindset or materialist mindset today. So very different from those two things. You know, that attitude where reason is fun, using it is like a game, and using reason in that way is humble, right? So that's what makes something fun, is if you're humble about it. And this humility, this humbleness, is what leads to that great twist I was telling you about in the book. I really like that it was always fair to the characters. It has a bunch of different characters. It's mostly following these children, like I said. There are adult characters. Some are good, some are bad, some are like the useful idiot. That's one of the big themes, is that useful idiot. This person's not a bad person, but is used by evil people, and that's kind of how tyrannies get started, or dystopias get started, is very often through good people who are being used by bad people. And it's very fair to all these characters. I really like that. I really like that obviously J.K. Rowling uses it in her Harry Potter, where there's this triad of characters. So in Harry Potter it's Harry, Ron, and Hermione. In this there's a different triad, and I think that's a very useful, it's used in a lot of fiction. If you look at, you know, the original Star Trek, there's the triad of the three main characters of Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. And even if you look at the other Star Trek series, or it's a very well-known plot device, and I think J.K. Rowling uses it very well. Two things that I think are a little bit difficult is she's obviously communicating her values in this story, as we should in stories, and that's good. But sometimes some of her have how great and amazing democracy is. It comes across as a little preachy. I know I've heard that criticism of Narnia, where it's a little preachy sometimes, and I love Narnia, and we'll talk about that in a different episode. But I can understand that criticism, and in parts of this, especially near the end, it gets a little bit more preachy, which, yeah, not a big criticism. The first 2/3 of the book are amazing. If the whole book was at that high level, I'd highly recommend it, but the last third is just okay. It has some difficult assumptions underlying it, which, like, for example, in the mythology of this world, humans are born out of hatred, and I'm not going to go into how that works in and stuff. That's a difficult assumption about human beings, and it's just a silly part. It's not a main part. So those would be some of my criticisms, but overall, highly recommend this. My bottom line is I recommend this book. I think it's really good. It's a really good children's book. It's really good for Christians and all parents to bring up important values to their children and talk about these issues in a very fun way. So I really recommend that you read it, especially if you have children. Read it out loud to them. That's originally how it was. It was a story that was being told to children, and you can tell that kind of reading through it. So I hope that review was helpful for you, and every other week we're going to review different books, different forms of media. So you have a good day. God bless. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Please hit the like button and drop a comment down below. If you really liked it, consider subscribing and hitting the bell notification so you never miss a video. If you want to help me produce more great videos just like this, please support me on Locals. There's a link in the description, and that you'll get all sorts of good benefits for being a part of our Locals community, and you'll help me produce these great videos. Thank you so much.